3 times in a single month, my mailbox was crushed into twisted metal like some personal vendetta had been declared against a simple steel box at the end of my driveway. The last time, letters were scattered across my lawn like confetti after a parade, and standing there with the debris in my hands, I realized the truth. This wasn't bad luck. This was war. And when I found out it was the president of our HOA, Karen Monroe herself, who had been behind the wheel of that white SUV smiling as she turned my property into rubble, something inside me shifted. This wasn't just about mail anymore. This was about power, about someone thinking they could run me down until I broke. I live in Cedar Glen, the kind of neighborhood that looks peaceful at first glance. Manicured lawns, identical shutters, and block parties with plastic chairs lined up in the cul-de-sac. But beneath the surface, it was a kingdom. And Karen Monroe was the self-anointed queen. She wore her title like armor and swung the covenant rules like weapons, always reminding people that she decided what was uniform and aesthetic. I'd pushed back against her once before over a silly set of garden lights, and ever since then I knew I was on her list. Still, I never thought she'd go as far as literally running over my mailbox. The first time I chalked it up to chance, maybe a careless delivery driver clipped it. The second time I thought, okay, that's weird, but accidents happen. The third time? No, the third time was deliberate. My mailbox wasn't dented, it was obliterated, and then taped to my porch railing like a taunt was a neon pink slip violation. Notice non-compliant mailbox. Immediate replacement required. 7 days or else. $25 per day in fines, plus a $150 removal fee. I stood there laughing, not the kind of laugh you want to share at a party, but the laugh that sounds more like a growl, the laugh you make when you realize someone is spitting in your face and daring you to say something about it. I called the HOA office, Karen's personal voicemail basically, and left a cold message. Minutes later, she called me back. "Dr. Hale," she purred, "I assume you got the notice." I told her I'd gotten the notice all right, along with the smashed mailbox she conveniently failed to mention. She didn't even flinch. "Your mailbox was non-compliant," she said, rattling off reasons too big, wrong color, no brass accents. I fired back. "You ran it over with your SUV. Mrs. Harris saw you." And Karen laughed. Actually laughed. "I can't be held responsible for where I drive," she said. "If your mailbox had been in compliance, maybe it wouldn't have been in the way." And then click, she hung up. I sat there staring at my phone, jaw clenched so tight I thought my teeth might crack. That's when Frank Dalton, my neighbor across the street, strolled over. Retired Marine khaki shorts, year-round, the kind of man who always carried a lawn chair in his truck bed. He looked at the wreckage and asked Karen. I nodded. He spat in the grass. "Figures. She doesn't like anyone who pushes back." I told him she picked the wrong guy this time. He just grinned. Good. About time someone gave her hell. That night, I didn't watch TV or catch up on medical journals. Instead, I dug out the thick HOA covenant binder and started reading. Page after page of soul-sucking legal jargon until finally buried in Section 14.2. I found it violation notices must be physically delivered in writing, and homeowners must be given 14 days to cure before enforcement. Karen hadn't done that, not once. And when I searched federal law, I found something even better. 18 U.S.C. Section 1705, destroying a mailbox is a felony. Up to 3 years in prison. Karen wasn't just playing HOA queen, she was dabbling in felonies. But I knew people like her. They don't crumble when confronted, they double down. If I wanted to win, I needed more than rules. I needed a plan. That's when the idea hit me. If she wanted to demolish my mailbox, I'd build one she couldn't touch. Something so strong it would turn every one of her attacks into a joke. A fortress. I started gathering evidence. Mrs. Harris, bless her, admitted she'd seen Karen back her SUV into my mailbox, deliberate, slow, like she was enjoying herself. Another neighbor, Ruiz, confessed he'd seen the third hit and run. A kid down the street had GoPro footage of Karen's SUV idling near my driveway. I put it all together, typed up a crisp timeline, and even copied every petty violation Karen had ever written against other neighbors. Tulips too tall, bird baths removed, Christmas lights deemed unauthorized. Suddenly, this wasn't just about me, it was a pattern. And while I compiled my Operation Mailbox Fortress folder, I ordered the crown jewel, a Fort Knox brand mailbox. 80 pounds of quarter-inch steel, reinforced post-forest green with brass numbers, the exact color combination Karen's own rules required. HOA compliant on the outside, bulletproof on the inside. When it arrived, the delivery guy wheezed, "What the hell do you have in here, bricks?" I grinned. Something better. Friday morning felt like game day. Mike, a buddy who owned a concrete company, showed up with his crew. We dug deep, poured concrete thick enough to anchor a skyscraper, and dropped that steel giant into place. Neighbors gathered like it was a neighborhood festival. Mrs. Harris, with her thermos Ruiz, snapping photos. Even shy Mrs. Whitaker brought her little dog to watch. And when we tightened the last bolt, the crowd applauded. Frank raised his beer. The first indestructible HOA-approved mailbox in Travis County. I corrected him. The first Karen-proof mailbox. Of course, Karen couldn't resist. The very next morning, her SUV crept down my street. I watched from behind the blinds as she stepped out, clipboard and tape measure in hand. She crouched, measured the height, measured the width, even tried to shove it. Nothing. She kicked it. Still nothing. She leaned her whole weight into it. The thing didn't budge. My hidden camera caught every second the scowl on her face, the way she muttered under her breath, the frantic scribbles on her clipboard before she stormed off. My group chat lit up. She looks like she swallowed a lemon. But Karen never backs off. That evening she returned, this time with her meek husband clutching a pipe wrench and the head of maintenance in tow. I stepped onto my porch. "Evening, folks," I said casually. "Can I help you with something?" Karen plastered on a smile. "Dr. Hale, your mailbox appears. Unusual." I held up a highlighted copy of the covenant. Forest green. Brass numbers. Exactly as required. The maintenance man glanced at Karen and shrugged. "She's right, ma'am. It meets the code." Her husband dropped the wrench like it weighed 50 pounds. From across the street, Frank hollered, "Mailbox wins!" The neighbors erupted in laughter. Karen flushed red, muttered something about harassment, and stormed off. That night, though, doubt hit me. Sitting alone at my kitchen table, staring at that covenant binder, I wondered, was this worth it? Was I really risking lawsuits and sleepless nights over a mailbox? Maybe I should just cave, replace it with the flimsy wooden post they wanted, and move on with my life. For a moment, I felt small, powerless, like Karen had already won. But then I remembered the look on my neighbors' faces, the relief when they shared their own horror stories. This wasn't just about me, it was about all of us. If I gave up, I'd be telling every one of them that silence was the only option. And I couldn't do that. Not anymore. The next HOA meeting felt more like a trial. Usually 20 bored retirees showed up. That night the room was packed. I stood with my folder of evidence. Karen sat at the head of the table, gavel in hand, smug smile on her face. When the forum opened, I walked to the microphone. "I'm here to address the illegal destruction of my mailbox," I said. Gasps rippled through the crowd. I laid out the timeline, showed the highlighted covenant, cited federal law. Karen tried to interrupt, claimed she'd posted a notice on my door. I smiled. Funny, because my security camera shows no one approaching. Then I held up the letter from the postal inspector's office, acknowledging receipt of my complaint. Destroying a mailbox is a felony, I reminded them, punishable by up to 3 years in prison. The room went silent. Mrs. Harris stood, voice trembling but strong. "I saw you, Karen. I saw you back into it." Ruiz confirmed it too. The crowd murmured. Karen's face drained of color. And then I hit her with the kicker: selective enforcement. I pointed out the Petersons' blue mailbox, the Abernath's stenciled numbers, neither ever fined. "This isn't about rules," I said. "This is about harassment." Applause thundered through the room. Bill Ortega, a retired lawyer on the board, finally spoke. "He's right. If proper notice wasn't given, the board is at fault. and selective enforcement is illegal. Karen banged her gavel until it cracked, but the tide had turned. Still, she tried one last move. She called an emergency meeting, plastered flyers all over the neighborhood, warning that aggressive homeowners were threatening property values. It was laughable. By then, people were fed up. Dorothy, a widow whose birdbath Karen had removed, drafted a recall petition. Within a week, 50 signatures. On the night of the recall, the community center overflowed. Karen stormed in, binder in hand, and launched into a speech about protecting property values. Dorothy cut her off from the back. "What I want is my bird bath back." The room exploded in laughter. I stood, opened my folder, and read out the law, the covenant, the witness statements. Karen shrieked about harassment, but nobody listened. Ballots were passed out, retain or recall. When the votes were counted, the result was clear, 72-9. Karen Monroe was out. She stood white as a sheet, hissed, "You'll regret this," and stormed out with her husband trailing like a ghost. And just like that, the reign of Cedar Glen's queen was over. Sometimes it only takes one small stand, a mailbox of all things, to bring down a tyrant.